for mass, and the priest sums up in a way like this. All we say is Akpe Namawu. But I think to you, we say Akpe. We're grateful. Minister, I want to now invite you, Minister for Finance, I want to now invite you to the podium. I don't know how good your Ewe is and how you say E-levy in Ewe. In Wa, we were told it's Lampo, and it's easy for everybody to understand. So I don't know, it's the same thing, Lampo. Is that so? But I guess that's the concept. Ajoga. Ega. Ajoga. Okay. So please join me to receive the Minister responsible for Finance, the Honorable Ken Oforiatta, to speak to us about how we are building forward better and what our shared responsibility in this is.
Good afternoon. I think everybody woke up there. And Minister responsible for E-Ajoga, that's me. Got a new title here. But truly pleased to be here. And our revered chiefs, thank you for taking the time to come. Host Regional Minister, it's always good to see you. I've been in the region maybe 3-4 times this year already, so that's good. Colleague ministers, Minister of Information, Rail, JP, John Peter, cost me a lot of money during the elections, but he ended up becoming the majority leader of the Volta caucus. So we thank him for that, and that is what happens when you invest in development. The impossible becomes possible. So thanks for that. RegTech members, thank you for being here, and our dynamic NYA Chief Executive, truly appreciate what you said and the spirit with which you did that. And certainly, our spiritual leaders, thanks for starting us off well and for covering the nation even as we continue to murmur and are unable to see the great benefits that the Lord is giving to us as a country and blessing us. So this town hall meeting is the 5th, I believe. We went to Kofodua, Takoradi, Tamale, and Wa, and we are here to really share with you. I think most of the information has been delivered by my colleagues, and so I'll really shorten what I have to say so that we can get into the comments and questions and answers. And that's usually, much richer. So in this movement towards the E-levy, also during the Christmas season, which I spent in Chebi, I visited a number of towns, and Yinam, Apapem, Achim, Himai, Triapiase, etc., just to really find out about people's sentiments about this, the rural versus urban. And even when I came back to Accra, I went to Pram Pram to also hear what the canoe people, the boat people were all saying. But I believe that for all of us, we'll have to recognize that there's been a tremendous improvement in our economy since we started in 2017, and maybe we've gotten so used to it that we've taken it for granted. Be that as it may, we moved from some 3.4% growth to almost an average of 7 through the period until the COVID incident, which affected the whole world. Our inflation was down to single digits, and the deficit was down to under 5%. And truly, this was a country, en route to bringing transformation to our people. But I think more important was the centrality of the president's vision, which was really the elevation of each citizen. And therefore, the senior high school program, which impacted all of us, nephews, nieces, children, whatever, to the extent about 400,000 new people were able to get into senior high school. So in this bent to create what you call a Ghana beyond aid, and a Ghana of prosperous and confident people, is what the president's legacy he wants to leave and what his vision has. So as I've mentioned, the Livelihood Empowerment Program has moved on to some 340,000 households. The school feeding program has moved from 1 million to about 3.4 million. And then, of course, senior secondary school has also moved up. So you can see a nation that is progressively moving. We also inherited what we called an asset quality review, which essentially said that our banking system was going to collapse if we don't do something about it. That was, of course, buried under some shelf, and the president had the courage to say, let's fix it. So we saved some 4.6 million people who would have lost their deposits, and today the banks are some of the healthiest we have seen in our history, and they are lending a lot more than they used to do. So 65 years in a few days of political independence, and I think what I want to register is that 65 years ago, the Big Six and Dr. Nkrumah, envisioned a democratic, independent country, which we achieved, and then set off this ripple effect for the independence of the continent. Small Ghana, proud, strong people, and that is what we were able to do. Amazingly, during that period until last year, when the Africa Free Continental Trade Area came into force, Ghana had not enjoyed any of these AU organs. And as the good Lord will have it, that is what came. But what does that mean? AFCFTA moves us into a mandate to be literally the investment and trade hub on the continent. And so suddenly, by divine design, we as a small country launched the political independence of the continent, and now 60 years later, we are now at the forefront of launching the emancipation, the economic emancipation of the continent, and we should be cognizant of these major pillars of our lives. But the president was also clear that you cannot sustain these two pillars without a spiritual and moral angle, and therefore his commitment to the National Cathedral, so that we are able to acknowledge also the grace of God and why he has destined us to be the small country that is able to change the course of Africa. So that's the pride, and I think for me, that's what I would like us to remember, our responsibility for ourselves and our continent, and to be a proud nation of a confident people and entrepreneurial in that regard. So this year's budget, the Ajinkwa budget, as we named it, is essentially to say, how do we turn ourselves into an entrepreneurial state, a state in which people are given the skill set to be able to start their own jobs, and grow the economy, because government cannot continue to absorb what Pius mentioned, some 11 million people, to be able to give them jobs. So then, that is the entrepreneurial nation, and the interventions are very clear. A historic 10 billion CD Youth Start program to tackle this unemployment menace. And the question becomes, who should take care of this? And what sacrifices and burden sharing should we have such that we will be able to unleash the potential of our people that we have? And the president has also said that yes, we have the ingenuity to fix the economy, but you can't bring people back to life. So that intervention is what we are looking at. Then the question becomes, how do we get financing to support it? Because at this junction, since the COVID intervention, which essentially cost us, at least on the budgetary front, some 11 billion CDs of lost revenue in that year, and another 14 billion of increased expenses to be able to maintain our lives and livelihoods and ensure that we also get ready post-COVID. So he asked us to also look at a transformation program called the Ghana Cares Program, which will take advantage of this crisis as warriors to move forward, to be able to save our economy, but beyond that, actually transform it into the thriving country with a manifest destiny for greatness that the good Lord has blessed us with. So in simple terms, we then introduced the E-levy, and that has been mentioned. Parliament, all of them together, were generous enough to pass the appropriation bill, which means, I like your policy, this is the way to go. How do you do fiscal consolidation, manage your expenses, increase your revenues, and then these are the revenue measures that will go to support it. And then we fell into this conundrum where E-levy has become a battleground for a nation and a youth in waiting. But the consequences of that are there, because really when we talk about the national economy, you can simplify it to your own economy at home and ask, if you go out and you sit with your family and agree that yes, we want Kojo to go to school, we want to buy this uniform, we have to buy this piece of land, and this is how we'll grow and develop ourselves, and we all vote for it. And then we also indicate that, well, to be able to do this, we have to make sure that everybody brings, a CD into the kitty. And then we say, oh no, as for that, we won't do that. So where then is the vision? Where is the sacrifice? Where is the burden sharing? How do we go forward? And there are lots of issues that, I believe we have to contend with. It is legitimate for you to ask, well, if I give you the money, how are you going to account for it? And so let's put that in the legislation, or make a commitment to report to me every quarter. Let's see what you do so that we can move on. And I think that we are prepared to do. Then there was quite a bit of talk that 1.75 is too much and it affects the poor in an unbalanced way. We didn't quite believe that, but we went ahead then and then sat with the telephone companies, and through the dialogue, they were able to reduce their rates by 0.25, which then in effect impacted all the 21 million people who were paying 1% to send, 1% to receive, to reduce that by 0.25. So we felt very strongly that those discussions had resulted in reducing the cost to the average Ghanaian. The opposition said that was not enough, and then I asked, well, if we have to pay for our debt, we have to pay salaries, we have to also ensure that our youth are employed, where are we going to get the resources from if you insist on reducing what to bring in the revenue, even though we have brought the rates down. Be that as it may, I think they had convinced a lot of people, and people felt it was too high. So we did agree and to bring it down to 1.5. So now we ask, what next? And the consequences of that, as we know, we got downgraded when we go out to the world to go and raise money. So that now we'll pay maybe 5% more or so for our money instead of 8%. You know, it might go to 13% or so. Ladies and gentlemen, what that means is that if I go to borrow $1 billion, that means each year there's an additional $50 million because of all the noise that, you know, money doesn't like noise. And therefore, over 10 years, the cost to us is $500 million. And it has to sink in us to know what we are doing to ourselves when we do that. But then I also ask, for example, so if somebody transfers, Momo transfers 1 million cedis a year, or maybe 1 million cedis and 36,000 a year, how much will that person pay? The person will pay 15,000 Ghana cedis for that amount of money. We know most of us do not do that. So let me bring it down to even 100,000. If you transfer 100,000 cedis a year through Momo, or 100,000 and 36,000, 136,000, because the first 36,000 is zero. The nation will be asking you to pay 1,500 cedis a year, for that money. So, how much is a bottle of Coke? How much is a bottle of Coke? 5 cedis, 5 cedis, okay. So that's 300 bottles of Coke divided by 12, and maybe you get what? You are coming close to, a bottle of Coke a day. So the nation is telling you to sacrifice 1 bottle of Coke a day. That really is it. And you are fighting as horse. We've now brought our ratings down, which is going to cost us $500 million. And you ask for a nation that takes care of your child in kindergarten, in primary school, JHS, SSS, and university, for them to ask you to pay 1,500 cedis a day. Is this brouhaha? And that becomes really sobering. But meanwhile, we also said in the legislation that, for any 100 cedis you do in a day, we won't charge you. So that's 3,000 maybe cedis a month, no charge. So which poor person transfers 3,000 cedis a month? As a matter of fact. Then somebody who is a pensioner will give me an emotive story that, well, I send money to my grandson or whatever, and you're going to tax me on that. But you don't send 100 cedis a day to your grandson. So it's a theoretical argument. But why are we getting into theory when we have 11 million children, nieces, nephews, that we have to find ways of employing. And the government is intervening with a 10 billion CD program to address that issue. So where is the sacrifices of our forebears when they launched us into emancipating Africa, the political independence, now launching us into economic independence, and we, at this junction, are refusing to do our quota. As I said, instead of a debt burden, to change it into burden sharing. And that becomes the issue of the politics. So we look at, let's say, the tax burden. And we have 30.8 million people. I think GRA expects so 11 or 18 million people to be in the taxable net. But we have only 2.4 million of us that are paying for the country. And everybody else is informal or is not paying. So we did some analysis. You know, typically when you talk about the informal market not paying, is the masons, the carpenters, etc., that we think of, the Makola woman. And that may be true, but fortunately now everybody is being registered, so we'll find them. But when we did the analysis, we found 60,000 professionals, architects, doctors, lawyers, who are not paying anything. So you have this situation of a country that is refusing to face up to its realities. You know, the issue of entitlement and how we address this problem, in which between the 700,000 civil servants that we pay and the interest we pay on our debt, we essentially are spending 144% of the revenue that we get from GRA on that, meaning we have to borrow to do that. Now, why do we need to borrow from outside? We don't need to, but we need to find a system in which everybody is contributing. When you look at the numbers for E-levy or for Momo transactions, what we are seeing really is that in 2016, we had about 78 billion CDs of transfers going through. So that the issue of e-commerce is not only Ghanaian, it's becoming global, and is the way in which business is going. Last year, from the 78 billion, we had about 953 billion going through Momos. So how does a country sit by, not recognize the change in our economics and the new tax handles that have been afforded us, while the old ones will fall off, and not begin to take advantage of it? Not only would it increase the mobilization of our revenue, but it also ensures that all of us participate in that. And I think that's important for equity and fairness for us to be able to do that. So instead of the leakages of everybody holding their bucket and dodging government in their own way, including our professionals and our informal market, we now have introduced what one pastor told me is a water hose. When you are in that water hose, you can't get out. The nation will find you and you will pay your bit, and the nation will move on. Right now, we are doing about 12 or 13% of revenue compared to our GDP. All the countries around us are doing 16 to 20%. So obviously, we are not doing well enough as a people. And we need to sit to determine how we move forward in that. Another example, if you look at the breakdown of the taxes we have Greater Accra, maybe providing about 88% of the taxes in the country. And if you add Ashanti, Western, and Eastern, they provide 3% of the taxes in our country. For Volta region, I think the population of Volta region is about 5.6. And I think we provide 0.11% of the taxes. So you can begin to see the inequities that we have. But at the same time, the cry for infrastructure we have. But at the same time, the cry for infrastructure, roads, education is everybody's right. It's everybody's right. And we must find a means of fulfilling that desire. And as has been mentioned, therefore, if you look at the population of Volta region and determine that between the ages of your 1.7 million, between the ages of 15 and 35, we have almost 600,000 people, 588,000. And we know the level of unemployment or underemployment. I think it's calculated at about 13.8% here. How do we sit and allow 588,000 of our youth to be underemployed or unemployed, and not encourage our MPs to say there's a difference between our livelihood, there's a difference between politics, and there's a difference in what we must do for the Republic and for our children? Because for me, the indecency of not having a job after all of that education should not be tolerated by everyone. And at this stage, things, as has been told you by my colleagues, are even more exacerbated and worsened because of this war that we have in Ukraine and Russia. But even before that, we had begun to see inflation move in the West, global supply chains distorted, fuel prices now climbing up. So we really have no choice but to look at ways in which we can raise the resources internally to be able to do that. So here is to let you know that I believe a proud people like ourselves do not have a choice but to be able to give our children the opportunity so that we can improve and transform our economy. And the reason beyond what our forebears have done is that me, myself, I'm a beneficiary of, a society that has invested in people, or individuals that have invested in people. So I grew up in Chebi, born out of wedlock, and therefore, I had to live with my mom, and every morning, instead of going to school, there's this great river called Birim in Chebi. I'll go and swim, and then come back home. And of course, grandma would know that you didn't go to school because your skin is all white, and you get a cane on your back. But be that as it may, finally, my father decided to recognize that he had a son living somewhere in Chebi, and then brought me out of Chebi to give me the chance to then go to Achimota school, etc., etc. But if that intervention had not occurred, I'm sure I'll still be in Chebi chewing my tawa and drinking my palm wine. And just to let you know that I was not the smartest person in my class. Yeah. Okay. So, the mic is on? Okay. On TV is acting. So therefore, got this opportunity then to be here with you through intervention, through the intervention of a responsible parent who then enabled one to go to school, and at this point to be your finance minister. And really the moral of the story is to say that of all those, you can hear, yeah, I think the TV is capturing it for us. The moral of the story is that if we all burden share, if we all do our part, we'll be able to tackle this problem of unemployment, these 11 million youth that are underemployed, and give them the chance to be able to be productive citizens of our land. So the 10 billion Youth Start program to create 1 million jobs is what the E-levy will enable us to do. The E-levy will also enable us to be able to pay our debt, and the E-levy will be able to will enable us to be able to build our railroads and our infrastructure and other roads. So we are really, ladies and gentlemen, in unprecedented times in which we as a nation need to come together. And there was an example in the 80s in Ireland where their debt to GDP had risen to 115% of their GDP, and unemployment was above 15%. And at that time, labor unions, government, faith-based organizations, and citizens all sat together and agreed that this can continue. How do we lock hands to face the issues that confront the Republic, and then we do our other fights in a different way? So we cannot continue to politicize what is good for the Republic, what is good for our youth, what is important for us to pay our debt, what is important for our infrastructure, and cost us our ability to also enter the international capital markets. So my charge and my plea to all of us is that we talk to our various MPs and we find common ground to find the revenue that is needed for us to be able to build our economy and get our youth working and pay down our debt. And that really is a conversation that we want to have here. And somebody might say, well, it's only 7 billion, which is under 10% of all the revenue that we intend to raise. But, you know, we always start small, and before long, we'll have the resources to be able to do much more. So the E-levy is not here to destabilize us, but it's to give us a consistency so that we can move forward to take really the reins of development into our own hands. And as we did to liberate Africa politically, as we are going to do with the economy through AFCFTA, it's what we should do for ourselves through E-levy to be able to transform our economy. So it is programmed to do just that. It is designed such that the very poor are not taxed on this, and it will make us once again that proud nation that we want to be. But there's something that I also want to leave us with, because as we look at our economy and where we are as a people, as the black star of the nation, there's something that is happening that is scary. And that is what I call the Comoros syndrome. And it's really funny when I mention it, you know, in other places. Because Comoros, where most of you don't know where the small island is, actually beats the Black Stars. And you ask yourself, how far have we come How far back have we gone for a country like Comoros to beat us as the nation of the Black Stars that we are, and we are continuing to quibble about something that will bring back our pride and so. So I have this story that I will read to you that should give us some food for thought. And it's a story from a book called The Song of the Bird by Tony DeMello. So let me start. A man found an eagle's egg and put it in a nest of a barnyard hen. Yeah, little, chicken farms. The eaglet hatched with the brood of chicks and grew up with them. This is a little eaglet. All his life, the eagle did what the barnyard chicks did, thinking he was also a chicken. He scratched the air for worms and insects. He clucked and cackled, and he would thrash his wings and fly a few feet into the air like a chicken. Years passed, and the eagle grew very old. One day he saw a magnificent bird above him in the cloudless sky. It glided in graceful majesty among the powerful wind currents with scarcely a beat of its strong golden wings. The eagle, the old eagle now who thinks it's a chicken, looked up in awe. Who is that? He asked the fellow chickens. That's the eagle, the king of the birds, said his neighbor, the chicken. He belongs to the sky. We belong to the earth. We are chickens. So the eagle lived and died a chicken, for that's what he thought he was. Now we are the Black Star. You are beginning to feel that we have lost our aspirations, and instead of the eagles that we are in our coat of arms and our forebears who died for us to found this nation, we may die as chickens if we do not wake up. Let us rise and build our nation. Thank you very much.
Minister, many thanks for your presentation. Let me just render a few apologies. First, to our colleagues who are having to stand in the hallway, we apologize. I think we underestimated the attendance, and that's why you are having to stand out there. We sincerely apologize. Secondly, I think you noticed we had a little power trip. So for the tens of thousands of people who are watching us on television, they can still see us and hear us. But here in the auditorium, I think the volume fluctuates a little bit. You'd have to bear with us. So when you have an opportunity to ask a question, please do well to raise your voice so that those in the auditorium can hear you very well, while those who are at home also hear you. We have a delegation from the Ghana Revenue Authority and the Ministry of Finance that came to town with us. They will help us in responding to many of the technical questions. And then on the policy questions that will be raised, I'll come to the Honorable Minister for Finance to help us respond. For some of the, and let's face it, some of the issues are also plainly political. For some of the political issues that will also come up, JP is here, Pius is here, Regional Minister is here, myself, I'm here. We'll do our best to respond to them. Everywhere we go, we find that there's already been a lot of misinformation about the economy, about the E-levy, the mechanics and the purpose. And so we love to hear your questions so that we have an opportunity to respond to them. In that light, if I may ask for some direction on where the microphone is. Where's the microphone? And the stand to the microphone, COVID times, so we do well to ask you not to touch the microphone. It comes with a stand and it will be brought to you. If you give me a wave where you are, you can ask your question in whatever language. My colleagues here will help me with the interpretation, and then we'll do our best to respond to you. Minister, I want to start with a little comment I saw from one of the persons who was viewing, or who is viewing this town hall meeting on one of our social media handles. And essentially, it's about this Coca-Cola example that you gave. if I just may read it out. It says, I think the working of the threshold of 3,000 cedis a month or 100 cedis a day needs further explanation. The scenario the minister gave about a bottle of Coke needs further explanation so that we don't think that we are being asked to contribute 5 cedis a day. Please explain it well for us. Because if indeed poor people are out, why this propaganda succeeding that it is rather targeting those of us down here who, after all, will not be affected? Minister, I'm sure you get the sense of this communication. So please make a note of that for us. I see some hands, I think, at the back. So, George, you have to help me. I can't see very far at the back. So you select 4 people for me who ask their questions. Minister, your microphone is on. Maybe just to clean up or to clear up this threshold matter. It appears there are still a lot of people who do not understand that there's a threshold. Some people are exempted. Can I have your attention, please? First, let me have, George, please hold on. Let me have everybody's attention. When we are done with this, we'll take the questions. So we need some clarity on this. It appears that some persons still don't understand that there's an exemption threshold. And that exemption threshold actually takes out the poor, that the poor are not part of this levy. If you can just explain that very well for us, what is that threshold, what are the mechanics, and then we'll go to questions. I don't know if your microphone works there, does it? Well, I can't hear you in the speakers here, so please do join me here. I think the speakers here can't catch you. Please do join me. Let's try again. No, I think so.
Thank you very much indeed. And I think that's truly an important question because you've gotten the sense that this tax is so pernicious to the poor and consideration had not been given. But we did an analysis which suggested to us that really when you look at 100 cedis being transferred each day, about maybe 30 or 40% of people do not do that. So we exempted the E-levy impact on anybody who transfers up to 100 cedis a day. That would mean, let's say, about 3,000 cedis a month. And in our view, that really covers, the daily transfers that people make. So if you have to do maybe 200 cedis because of a specific product you need to buy or transfer you have to do, you could do that in 2 days, and you are exempted from that. If you're a pensioner, pension rates are not that high, and you are sending money to your grandchild, likely it is under 100 cedis or less than 3,000 cedis in the month, and there will be no E-levy charge on that. So the propaganda is really unfortunate. And we actually met a woman in Wa who said she had been told that even her 50 cedis that she sends to her suppliers, she would be E-levied on that. And that when she has 2 cedis on her mobile money, government will take a CD 50 every week from that. So that's the type of misinformation that Minister is talking about. And it really hurts, for people to be resistant to it while not realizing that truly we've all been taken care of.
Minister, thank you. So just to reiterate, if you do not send more than 100 Ghana cedis a day, you will not be paying this tax. This tax or this levy only applies to people who send more than 100 Ghana cedis a day. So if you send 200 cedis, the first 100 cedis is exempt. It's from the 101 cedis going that this tax applies to. And as Minister explained, 40% of people who do Momo transactions, they send less than 100 Ghana cedis. And that is the poor. They are already taken out. It is the gap between them and the top about 2.4 million people who are the only people paying direct tax. Out of the about 15 million people who should be paying direct tax, only about 2.4 million are paying. The gap between them and the bottom is what we are seeking to share this responsibility with. And for that bottom, 40% has been taken out, those who send less than 100 Ghana cedis. So it's a good time. George, please identify 4 people. You have to help me and take the microphone to them. Not more than 2 questions each. Please make your questions simple so that other people can also ask their own questions and we can hear from as many people as possible. George. Yes, sir. So the first gentleman, please introduce yourself to us.
Yes, thank you. My name is Joshua Chateau.
Joshua.
Yes, from academia.
Joshua, your question.
Yes, the first is, we have the clarion call by the president, the vice president of our country, in the person of His Excellency Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia, pushing the agenda for digitalization of our economy, encouraging young ones to transit from the carrying of raw cash to digital economy or cashless economy. We have E-levy, which has become a lion frightening us from that agenda of participating in the digital economy. What is government's strategy of ensuring that, in as much as we push for E-levy, the performance in digital economy are not being threatened and frightened such that people resort to the carrying of cash instead of performing or participating in digital economy or platforms?
So how do we ensure that digitization doesn't suffer?
Yes.
Let's go to the next
Key
question.
government strategies.
Yeah.
Second is, it's just a comment that our forefathers made sacrifices in terms of using their blood to buy the freedom we enjoy now in our country. But I want to say that yes, we are being asked to make a token or contribute a token to the development of our country. But I want to say that if we drive on bumpy and pothole-ridden roads such that our women do not get to the hospitals when they have to access health care and they die, we are making our contribution to our country, our sacrifices. When we drive on very dangerous roads that government will take some months or years to correct, and we carry on those things and we don't access quality services, we are making our contributions. So somebody says, Sikaya Moja, the token is our blood, we are willing to contribute, but government should come up with key communication mechanisms that we are able to understand that, yes, if we pay this money,
this is what it will be
we
used
will
for.
Get this.
Thank
so
you.
that we are all able to do so. Thank you.
Let's hear from other people. And this forum is one of those engagement and communication platforms. So let's take 3 more.
Yes.
Kingsley, your question.
Thank you. I'm a broadcast journalist. My question is that prior to the announcement of the E-levy, we have what we call the toll, where drivers pay on the road.
Yep.
Yeah, so we have not passed the E-levy bill, but the roads, the toll booths are no more working. And so the money that we get from the toll booth is missing. In that sense, the state surface.
It's not missing. It's not coming into the national
It's not coming. Yes, it's not coming.
Because before you realize, somebody will go and write a story that the money is missing.
It's no more coming.
Yeah.
And so, in the past days, or within these days, we heard that even if we don't pay the E-levy, no salary for government workers.
Government has not said that.
How true is that first? And so, what is it that the E-levy is not passed, but we stop the payments of the toll booth? Thank you.
Very well. So the question is, why is it that the E-levy has not been passed, but we have stopped collecting toll booths? Toll booth levy, or the road levy at the toll booth. Yes, sir. 2 more. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Obey Evans. Honorable Finance Minister.
Evans.
Yes, please.
Evans, let's hear you.
Yes. For the sake of our locals, I would like to speak away.
Please, go ahead.
Good. Honorable Finance Minister, I must ogbe so miapa E-levy. Ple nuzozo yoji ye miapa kutrikuku pla babajeje be miase goma ba to me view so suita on hiambe mia dashire E-levy aji afi miao abe miapa to pla la yao kele ngona mia tank plotoa lengo alo le teti no mama mama bia ba afi mia hozia mienya ba dasia ro mi tsonami mi hozia la maroshi ye mi sama ba agayi gadukwa alo mi afa taxpayer money o ko dashinami yenye wo finance minister ba na ko plotoa bada mi afa duklola no a do li mi gbamba account alo accountability lenya yo kata gbogboma nyemasa nenye be de edowo wonyi alo fukpakpa de gademe ye egafo le miaƒe kɔfɛsa me yi ke ohia be miadzi ga bubu yata wo le vevie be nenye be E-levy ya wo ma pass wa miagate ŋu ase naneke mabe dukɔmevi o gakpe ɖe ŋu ɖe taflate no ma pass o ɖe leke wòanɔ na mi abe dumeviwo ne ke do fiafiam be dumeviwo ƒe vevesese gblɔm wole be o enya ame ɖeɖa kɔkɔ ne yewo hã yewo medzi be E-levy no pass o ke boŋ miade susu bubu aɖe ka kpe ɖe dukɔmetɔwo ŋu ɖe yea ɖo fia be eme mekɔkɔm tututu ne dukplɔla alo mia ŋgɔgbenɔ wohia be miatɔ ya ko nye deditɔa medzi be mase alo miase yame.
Thank you very much. I heard EGA and I heard accountability. Pius, can you help us?
Yeah, first commended the minister for the exercise and suggested that we took over from another administration and some comments and promises were made. He wants to find out the monies that were in the coffers, and I'm quoting him literally, the monies that were in the coffers. Is it the case that they have run out and we need now to raise more money for the coffers, and that's why we have to raise the E-levy? And then secondly, what will be the implications for them if the E-levy is not passed, them as citizens, if the E-levy is not passed? And then how is it that government doesn't want to listen to their cry that, well, we understand the situation, but we just don't want to pay. Go and look for another way to raise the money. As for the E-levy, we understand the need for it, but we just do not want to pay. Can we not look at any other option?
Thank you. Thank you very much for simplifying. I'll take a final one, and then I'll come for responses. Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself to us.
Yeah, my name is Karubin Kofi Ziga.
Ziga, let's hear your question.
Yeah, my question goes to the finance minister. In his submissions, he says something about where lies our burden sharing, the sacrifice and commitment as citizens to help government solve problems. I want to ask that in his budget, he made us understood that the Office of Government Machinery alone is estimated to spend about even the half of the E-levy that he wanted to take from us. If he is asking us as citizens to share the burden and sacrifice to help government, I want to ask, what if he also goes down and cuts down the budget of the government machinery?
That is the free SHS budget, the NAPCO budget. Which of them are you asking him to cut?
I am asking him to cut that of the executive.
Which
the
one?
Presidency.
Because
I'm asking him to cut.
Take your time. Because the Office of Government Machinery, that's why I'm mentioning the items to you.
Yes, please.
Free SHS, NAPCO, Ghana AIDS Commission,
Please.
One district, one factory.
No,
that's the Office of Government Machinery.
Yes, and I'm taking one.
So just
out.
help us.
The one that I'm talking of is that of the executive, the presidency.
Okay. Which one is that one, by the way? How much is that one?
3.5 billion.
No, that's not true.
In 2022.
No, it's not true. That's the Office of Government Machinery.
Yes, please.
Made up of free. Please, let's take our time.
Yes.
This is a town hall meeting. If we don't go through some of these things, somebody gets confused at home. So let's take our time. The Office of Government Machinery is 3.1 billion. It's made up of free SHS, NAPCO, 1D, 1F, Ghana AIDS Commission, and all of those ones. You say you are picking the one about the presidency. Mention that figure and tell me, this is the one I want us to cut. This is the figure I want us to cut.
Please, I have the rundowns here. What I want the finance minister to do, in all, I'll pick only one out of the government machinery. That of the presidency and that of the executive. I am not privy to the exact amount that he is spending there.
I hear you.
I'll be fat. Now,
you.
my second question goes to my countrymen.
Go ahead. Noah, I'm sorry. Noah, please join me here.
Merekuku mechibe mabia Dumega Johnny Foyao. Pius ya ewa mikple han viminyota ma yebe Pius. Mechibe mabia bede. Egbe mile miagbo abe pefio be Mr. Ngome Nemi Naga kokpe de jidu bom le miama jogao me gake mejibe ma bia be epe iva yi eyimeka wo khle jidudu pedodo de Ghana to konwa amuganto me mesenya de ke chomia gbo namio de o flenanu le khetosi o me khefe na kheto ma ha akpe.
So, Honorable Pius, you want to quickly interpret that for us, and then we'll start the responses from there. So, Ziga, thank you for your question. George, from there we'll move to another side of the auditorium and go around so that more people can ask their question. A quick translation, and then we'll get reactions.
Okay, the questioner makes the claim that when the budget, the Jinkwan budget was presented, nothing was said about the Volta region, and he has expressed surprise that Peter and my good self kept quiet. But today we have come to ask them for money. And he wants us to respond to why, when nothing was said about the Volta, we didn't say anything. But that's his question.
But that is exactly not even true.
No, we cannot be.
That's not true. And I think as we go through the answers, maybe when Minister is done, I will come. JP, okay, please respond to that one. I'll add something to it, then we'll go to the others.
This is just to address that. Novinye and Ziga, Nenes do to budget, Nuya Ogloa, Nakobo Volta Regina, Element, a future. Mana example the Gauko. Ho where the day, nu the car the common. Yes, man, nothing me by example, I have Volta Regina. Miabe Eastern Corridor Moya, Ejele budget, Eastern Corridor, what to Howay. Keteka Moya by the Juguma, Ejele budget, Howea, there is a new university, Ejele budget, housing project, Ejele budget, Ezekoma, UHAS, Ejele budget, TVET education, technical and vocational education, Ejele budget, housing project, youth resources, Ejele budget, Novinyo, let me bear a whole Aplau road, Ejele budget, Ta, Mother Kukube, Volta Regina, and we are mere pole, a pay up a budget, ma. Tafrache, Mianovia on Nibaya, NTCA, Merponu Mao, the motorical budget, Neminiani Corridina, Miaroku, Miaque cinema. That Volta Region featured deeply in this budget. Ome de Milamo, Akwaganami.
Minister, I need you to also translate this for me. In addition to what you said, there are 261 districts in Ghana. 18 of those districts, if I'm correct, are from the Volta region. Every one of those 18 districts was budgeted for and is in the budget. Every one of those 18 districts. So if somebody, for political purposes, comes to tell you that Volta region was not included in the budget, it cannot be true. It is not true.
Minister Boblomba, a momofia de Kadaka, Alofa Aden, Alofa Verblad de Vodeke, Yele Dukome, Volta, Mia Toleme, Ome Wieni, Ule Mia Domi, Afisha Fika Momofia la, O Ngodoyo, Ngobe do Womafuma, Alaba Suku Ho, Konji Ho, O Tumde, the Persia, the Per, Tanamade, the politista. Over global Volta, comedy la budget amoa, amamoto yantapo.
Thank you. Minister, I want to come to you for your responses. So, for example, on the question of accountability, there was a question, I think, by Pius that deals with, no, it was that by Evans, and Pius interpreted. It deals with accountability, for example. His supposition, and it's a good opportunity for education, his supposition is that the previous administration left some money in the national kitty. Now that we are asking Ghanaians to pay a new levy, is it because there was some money that is finished that we are asking people to pay a new levy to fill the national kitty? Or is it the case, for example, that the exercise of government expenditure is about daily raising revenue to meet those expenses, and as the needs and the demands grow, we have to raise a lot more money? You may want to do some education on that one for us. I think we've dealt with the claim that the Volta region was not included in the budget. There's another question from Joshua. How do we ensure that digitization does not suffer? Does government have any concrete plans to ensure that digitization does not suffer? And why are toll levies not being collected now, though E-levy has not been approved now? Minister, we're in your hands for this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed for this. And I think that's really the excitement about these town hall meetings, because we can really speak truth to power and sometimes understand sort of the misinformation that we have and why we keep sticking to old arguments even when we have answers to them. And I think that's really important for us to do. And it's also quite disturbing for me when I hear our university graduates who sometimes will not research and read this themselves to debunk things, because that's why we send them to school, not to stick to ideology, but to stick to truth. And the way I grew up in the village, came out, got lucky to be where I am, I do respect research and to be able to debunk things. So, for example, we talk about the issue, and a lot of hyperbole, the lion frightening us out of digitalization. And the question becomes, if you are a government or a finance minister, you see an area of business increase from 78 billion to almost $1 trillion, and you sit back and say, I won't touch it. And that is where the direction of the country is going, or e-commerce is going. So we talk about digitalizing our economy, and the speculation is that the benefits of Momo transfers are so minimal that people will start carrying sacks of money to go back to the lorry station to send somebody to go to. We know that it's not true. Besides, we can have a policy which I hope we will do so, which will say that we are going to have a cashless economy, maybe in 3 years or in 5 years. And what does that mean? Meaning there will be no paper for you to use, because everything will be on your phone, etc., etc. It doesn't mean that you move away from digitalization. You are accelerating it because it's more efficient. I can find your grandma and send her money, etc. So let's not speculate about the future in a way that stops us from facing the realities of where we are going. What we are doing is bringing everybody into this water hose so that everybody contributes and we move forward as one nation. And that's what we should. So you shouldn't be the lion frightening us from the future. Then we talk about E-levy and tolls. You know, the challenge really is, you know, we passed the appropriation very quickly because there was an absolute belief in the direction that we're going. And then the politics came to stall the issue of the revenue measure, which is E-levy. And therefore, the issue of the tolls being disbanded, you know, have then become a chain around our necks. But beyond that, I mean, that's something that you see physically. I'm telling you that because of what we are doing, now our access to the international markets, you know, it's being curtailed to a certain degree, and even when we go, we are now going to pay $500 million over 10 years if I were to issue a billion CD paper. And that is significant. That we can allow our MPs not to vote for. Then you look at the issue of unemployment, and you should be concerned about that. How is that going to be paid? And it's not because we came and met some money that we have expended, but the issue of taxes, just as you get paid every month, you know, so that you can pay for your needs, is what we also are doing. So yes, there's a new tax handle that I believe we should embrace to be able to go forward, take advantage of it, and then get away
from the dangerous roads that you talked about. But I think government accountability is a very serious issue. And that is where we should compel ourselves as government, to identify things we want to do with the E-levy, to ensure that we have quarterly reports so that the nation can see, and we change our habits in the way in which we account. But I think the most significant thing is the issue also of being protectors of the public purse. The leakages that we see are done by you and I. It's not some foreign, army that comes in to steal our money. What we don't do at GRA, the waste we have in our offices, how we work less hours than we should. So this national conversation of trying to understand our share in where we are and where we need to move forward. So yes, we continue to raise money. We continue to be, for example, Minister of Information, the natural thing would have been to say, increase petrol prices. Can you imagine if that had been the option, given that now the world petrol prices are changing? And then you see an obvious, or maybe not so obvious, opportunity which embraces everybody, and you say, I won't listen, I won't do it because I just don't want to do it. That's no way to run your family. That's no way to run a country when we are faced with the realities and only some 2 million people, 2.4, are paying for you. And that's the conversation we must have. The honest truth about how we move forward as a country to pay our way, borrow less, get our youth employed, reduce our debt, and also build our infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Honorable Pius, I'll come to you briefly to interpret, but let me just provide this information. My brother who has a question about the Office of Government Machinery. Sometimes when you listen to radio or you go on somebody's social and say, hey, they've given Akufo-Addo 3.1 billion to go and chop. And we repeat this thing. My brother, I beg you, it's not true. It's in Appendix 4A of the budget. I beg of you to pick it up and look at it yourself. It's in Appendix 4A. And for the benefit of what we are doing, let me go through it. When you go to the Office of Government Machinery, there are agencies under it. The Ghana AIDS Commission, GIPC, etc. Some of the agencies, their budget is about 827 million. Then there are the public enterprises. They have a 10 million budget under it. Scholarships. We want more scholarships for more of our young people. 300 million. Maslock, 50 million. NAPCO, and even with that, you see all the issues that are coming up. 520 million. The National Identification Authority, 200 million. 1 billion of that 3 million is for the Infrastructure for Poverty Eradication Program. Some of the little projects we have in our districts that have to be paid for. And the list goes on and on and on. It's there. So when you hear somebody bandying it about that 3 billion, that's the executive's money, so it should be cut. My brother, with the greatest of respect, it is not true. It's called Appendix 4A. It's an honest conversation. Open it up, look at it, and go through it line by line. You realize that all of those are lies. They are not true. Honorable Pius, if you want to box them together for us, and then we'll move to the next one. Minister's microphone.
I think we should also remember that about 3 weeks ago, we cut expenditures by 20%, and we have sent that instruction to all of the MMDAs, so we manage it. So the issue going forward, ladies and gentlemen, family, is not anger. It is just cold analysis as to where we are and the difference between politics and the republic. And if you can read, then research it. We are not a parroting country, and we are not chickens. Let us fly high and stay up there.
Honorable Pius.
Yo, Minister Bobromba, manya jikunya onyo, maresha mana bojidi, mi klangwao, na mi asa goma. Majijua, mamala blavaji, alofaraka mamada blavaji, 20% cut. Ye yo across all MDAs. Ta yo cut via Information Minister da goma ba, na mi ba Office of Government Machinery. Mafia ba president per office Osogbo, Namianya GIPC, Ghana AIDS Commission, Plateau, Ohola Pama, Oka Ghana Scholarship Plateau La Pama, Oka Ghana Adao, 827 million. Public enterprises, 10 million. Scholarships, Secretariat Plateau, 300 million. Mass law, Kikaduna Ghana, Miada Daoko Chanashe, 50 million. NAPCO, Ika 100,000, so Hilda Domer, 520 million. National identification, Ghana Card, Omemela, 200 million. IPEP, infrastructure for poverty eradication, Bochodam, Ochiowom, Ono, the Miapakopa Ojikang, 1 billion. Ta 3-point-something billion, Afunya Yofia, Hayomaklefia de Deja, or we might another 2-point-something billion for list as of board. Tanamiba Office of the Government Machinery, Manya Duplolapa Office, Iglomemialo, Yenyama, Onamianyaba, Migatu for the Miadokioba, Nia Womimiala, o Miabamia, digitization, ta, Miavovo Dumbania, a chachitra digitization over our. Nuya bongwa ye bona kwekwaga digitization na fia kameba miaya na miayi bia ba anwa haya kwenya nwi to mi atanwo dumavio ba yo kweda makaka meji mobubuada oba yo butamocho mo mamle o kan de wenya ba yo ta dara meji plateau kaka yo butamocho kamo katanwa sui nwi to kakia kai kami atanwo gba ikama refu kwakwa dara miao dumavio jia Yenya E-levy agbloma yola heyo kata susoa na yo to moma wa afukpekpe bong idaga yola de dumavia oji akpa.
Thank you very much. We'll come for the next round of questions. George, microphone. Let's move to another. And let's look for some of the ladies. There's a lady here in an orange shirt. Oh, there's one of our chiefs here. So when we are done, madam, we will do some gender bias and come to you after Togbe has spoken. We'll come to you and then we'll take a few more from that side.
Yo, akpe, mi ape regional minister buto, na me chichi obete eva fifie, mi le top obete tepele botariji, do ezonemi. Mi poju John tobe ekpe la, mi ape vio o la miwe me beva, apeto kedido John play John, Peter play John, ya Petro play Yohanesi, ya kale ne. Miape ya mechichi ento ken miawele doji egberu ko lebe evine idume eyade ne gule ne gbova fe ne ba sadam le to ple no viogbo eyi gela menye vote wa we unyu mele vote wa gbe o wa nye be election ta over benemi no pole nemi vote na yiwo Bala enye Togbe kokuwa yin enelia javi fiaga meiji enya benemi wonane ni ko jira dukodo ni to beto kele nemi vivie soga obedo bleto bubu gere wedi e kai ne gamele ola ma to wonane ka yata ni ko jobo vala mi ga ba biabe yo to jela nu ke tututu ke len mo to mede no chinemi elabe ni choebe NDC le parliament MPP le parliament oboto desupo oboto nyanu gege wa ole o lo no pe nkupo nu keke le no metare akpado aglobe E-levy kenye gadimonu be mi akwa jira mi adukodo ke meleure nu katae cheta mi ake mi suba o mele gba no regibede E-levy never et ya gbogbo bubu kete lo cho o gbo le tefe vuvu cho le mi agbo vari ele mi aseme e ya ta mi tibe mi na mi ano vi ke to re va mi agbo fifi ebede nu si anu ko wa veto budget o bo wa kadodo ne Ghana duko le peme amore ko se dodo o pa dodo je ame ke to gbo bi o mi awon fia o yo nya duko klo la nya nyi gba to ela o nya de gele budget mo ne no do jila wa va mi abo ya ta mi le babia cho mi asi gbambede Nemi wo mi budget nemi apetede. Mi na copy mi awo je nemele meshawe. Mi ayo Peter Wava. Ava de mebe no fide. Mi ate the regional minister on. Pepa nge ko ngolo de fi a comedy. Ela bra English be do level necessary. E comme necessary. Yata mi le popolo be ni minna budget ke gbolo mi le fiere. Mi na copy mi. Mi eche mi akọ aden mene mi avio le yaun ma je ba wo me jo E-levy ko ne chef mi o E-levy age gave ne ya nye gage ve la ne mi se ko me ko mi ajo gade la bena de vie de gale ba bia se be tabrake ma yo si belu ele ba bia be yo no be ne yo jo gaga ke ni o se me ele o le me se ibe for Johannes le Petro mais tu vas voir quoi il peut chaque année à Medeo. Tu peux dagadou le mi et tu peux le million. Tu peux gabu sous le mi. Ademe, quand on est venu à Dieu qu'on le pas. Et puis Peter que le Johannes au wato. Il y a des mille babiacho mi asibe mi na copie mi a weche ne mi no popo. Que mi a de le mi vade. Mi a to den mene mi a viwe. E veliade. Inya velia. Ame kini to ya ko mele enga eka ajoga hell. Na ba ki to so mi yo fifie. Ka bobodo le ki mi de bubu le mi ape do apewe. Ki yo ya o mele ajoga hell ri. Ne mi join le vie ko wa. Minya mi andoje minya category of people who are not paying the levy. Ne mi ko E-levy de ever. Yo maga jogawa. Dodo kami wadeo. Akpenemi.
Akpe, Togbe, Akpe, Petro, and Yohane. I will come to you to respond in a way, and the normal pilots will do a quick translation of the question and answer for us. There's a lady who was in an African print. Yes, let's be biased towards the ladies a bit. So let's hear you, madam. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Patricia Peu, and
Patricia.
A teacher.
You're a teacher. Let's hear you.
My question is, in this country, we export gold, cocoa, fuel, just to mention a few. But our problems are still the same. We still have unemployment problems. We have bad roads. What is the guarantee that the E-levy will help solve this problem?
Solid question.
And then the second question too is that looking at public sector workers, we pay taxes. We pay taxes both directly and indirectly. But bringing this E-levy now, is the government not overtaxing public sector workers and whereby overburdening them? Thank you.
Can I ask you to please give her a round of applause? The first lady to ask a question, but her questions, I think, speak for a lot of women who are here as well. There was
printing money or giving some money to Ghana government of about 10 billion, which in all will give us about 25-point-something billion. We know that there was a revenue shortfall of about 14 billion in 2020. So if you have about this 25.5 billion coming in, and looking at our revenue trajectory, in 2021, we were supposed to raise about 70-something billion or so. Something billion. So with all this, my question is that if you want us Ghanaians to pay E-levy, like the finance minister said, pay and there will be accountability. Is it only with E-levy that there will be accountability for? Or what about what happens to the other funds that have been given to us? What happens to them? Will there be accountability on them?
Solid question.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And then we'll take one final question. And as you are going there, Dr. Nyako, you see your first question, you premised it on the assumption that Ghana is a net exporter. we have to ask ourselves a first question. Is it true that Ghana is a net exporter? Or is Ghana rather a net importer? I'll let the people with the data speak to it. But I like the fact that you put that in there, that your assumption is that Ghana is a net exporter. And if indeed Ghana is a net exporter, then we should gain rather than lose. The reverse is true, that if Ghana is actually a net importer, then we'll lose rather than gain. Solid question. I'll let the leaders deal with it. Also, just a quick one. You see, this IMF and the SDR you talk about is double counting. It's actually the same thing. So, first of all, we have to see all this calculation you have done, if it's true that it's 25, or actually if you've double counted some of them. But I just wanted to lay those ones down. I'll let the team respond to that one. Then your other question is that, how about, but I think your actual question is, how about accountability for all of those? Are there mechanisms for accounting for all of those? Minister will respond to those. Let's take a final question here. There's another lady. And then
My name is Mamagan Toleipwe the Fifth.
Mamagan.
The paramount queen mother of the traditional area and the president for Volta Queens.
Where's Mamagan?
Yo, Akpe. Madibe mabia no question devek beme. E-levy. Milek blole yovo beme. Alo English beme. Kake nyo nu yuwe de nasime. He hona microfinance loans o. Ele mile me denawe. Pardon me, amieva doga 1,500 cedis. O charge play interest. Your koga ne the mobile money. Your koga echena transfer ga le mobile money. Akodo da pasa. Beno flebli nai. Because maten koga da si e mo menyo chole peve I pasa otala je beno transfer ga. Ne mesi wa amrobesi wa for eleti le moji. Ye o transfer ga. Yemi gadeleme. De menye double taxation de miwa. Nyo velia nyebe asime nyo nu yome de sukuo. Home le yovo gbieme E-levy eme se ode. Leke milenya me de na odipe wa aseme. Be ejebene yoke E-levy. De ga ho vado ho tax lesi ho he charge ho ji akpe.
Thank you very much, Mamaga. Mamaga, I had double taxation somewhere there. So, Honorable Pius, here's what we'll do. Oops. JP, let me ask you to help us deal with Togbe's first question, because I heard him refer to you a lot. I don't know if the question was directed at you directly or if it was just a reference to you. It was just a reference. Okay, then Honorable Pius, interpret the two questions for us. We'll get responses and get the interpretation. Then we'll move to the other questions in English. I think that's fair to approach it this way, correct? So, Honorable Pius.
Mama's question, Mama uses the Maslow analogy. How are we interpreting this E-levy to a market woman who goes to borrow Maslow? Microfinance. And then there is a interest charge on the microfinance loan. And she has to send this loan to Pasa to buy corn. Presumably the woman sells corn at the market. So there is interest charges on the loan, and then she sends the money to Pasa to buy the corn, and E-levy is allegedly being charged on that transfer. So is she not being double taxed? That's the double taxation. The
first question. Okay, so please let me deal with that one even before I invite others.
Okay.
So the question is that if you borrow money from a financial institution, microfinance, bank, wherever, and you use that money to do a transaction, and that transaction is taxable, does the taxation of that transaction, in addition to the interest that you pay from the financial institution, not amount to double taxation? Am I correct? Okay. So when you take a loan from a bank and you buy a good that is, let's say, VAT applicable, you will pay VAT on it. The fact that you have paid VAT on that particular good, in addition to the interest that you paid on the loan you took from a bank, does not make a double taxation. if you take a loan from a financial institution and you are to buy, for example, fuel, and there is a levy on fuel, the fact that you have borrowed money from a financial institution for the purposes of your business, and your business requires fuel, and you have bought fuel with it, and the fuel has attracted some levy, Mamagan, with great respect, does not amount to double taxation. That is how it is in all of this value chain of transactions. So if you can do that explanation.
Yo, Akwa, Oba, yo de kuku na evadoga. Afisha fi kana duile banku microfinance ye o the interest deji interest no yo the deme deji interest bodeji never doga ye interest legia na ko gama ko planana yika iha o tax ne miche ko ba na doga ina kwe plavo alo na kwe plavu alo na kwe ja ami ye o dami o the tax de ami ajia menye ye o yona ba double taxation no ta menye double taxation e ma ta amatan doga ako wumbubu ade amaratan doga ako plemwe amaratan doga ako achashie na dodo ya wo ye onye tax le amiajia na doga ina kwe plamia mwenye double taxation enyama do mahi amagba amia bia ba nuka ko nye double taxation na no de goma kaka nu ya yomula ba double taxation na mara kukumanya goma nya ba na doga ye interest leji ko na kweve plamwe ko muga ho tax da kama ju me yo na ba interest double taxation no.
Thank you. And then on Togbe's question as well. Pass on Togbe's question.
Yes, Togbe's question is largely a commendation that this exercise is happening today, and it's happening at a time that is off political season. So we probably are not here to do this exercise in the view of the fact that we are seeking for votes. So he is happy that this is happening, and he's also happy that John Peter and myself are here, and the Volta region is also heavily represented around the table. However, he wants chiefs to be considered in government communications, especially around the budget. Copies of the budget should be made available to the chiefs, and they are the custodians of the land, and they are the first points of contact between the people and the government. And so they are advocating that they should be factored in the budget itself, and beyond that, they should be looped into the communications around the budget.
I want Regional Minister to make a quick comment, and then maybe JP first before Regional Minister, because I know some work is already ongoing. JP.
Just to also ask that Togbe also wanted to know that there are parties in Parliament. Why the other side in Parliament, let me say my very good friends, the NDC, are not accepting the E-levy. There are MPP people also in Parliament. Togbe believes that we need money for development, and there is no doubt about that. But why, can we explain to him why the other members in Parliament are not accepting that? Togbe, I think on this table, we are two members of Parliament, and I'm one of them. Me and Ovi are where me on the Parliament. Alo ya wenye NDC towa. Susu ya ta o le gbogbombe E-levy amenyo enye be gban. Obe yo ho esebe E-levy a ana hefu pepe vena Ghana view enye gbanto. Evele enye be mi ho ga ha ma ton account alo azangade no menua de kemo oga ijibe miedo ga sobo me ko ga ko wona de ke yo le popo mu susu ya uta yo medibe Ghana vigigio na wa kpefu be mi aga ko ajoga bubu ko pede wu susu ya e atamia no VNDC to obe ao ajoga yo ma ho kake no vinyo enya ya glomia no vio lele se wa kweta gogo ma menye anikwade onye o alakpa onye elabe miape finance minister alo ameya kona miape ganya ogbo a efere siada leka ozana ega o gbugbo na vana parliament department o agencies o to na ganya o plo eye leka ozaga o gboro na na lenye gbo a susu ya ta o karejibe E-levy a ma yiwe nyebe o le susumbe nenyebe MPP government ko gaya mi azende no menwe ademe mi aga o development project o 2024 election a donwe ya mi lo ogbekle gata to come view ava dakonami be to come view mega dakonami ota yo anabe to come view mega gao kakele nyegbo a nenyebe mi anovio le Ghana pe nyonwe dia elebo anabe de vio ni ka gabon na to come nyu ta frache 2024 meka nya be nyomi gbona fi no gelo alo MPP NDC to gbona fi nyoge ne gava ne yo ha over o ma ko polo to a kaka wo susu be mi ava za ganwe ne ngogbe yi na va na Ghana view a susu ya ta obe E-levy a menyu akpanami.
Thank you. Regional Minister, the top-up comments on engagement with chiefs, etc., as Togbe mentioned.
Yeah, Togbe, Medivema Agbo, last Friday, the Regional House of Chiefs over Takwe Menofuma, Medivema Agbo, President Akufo-Addo, and Nabe Mia government representatives. Let me have regular interaction with the Volta Regional House of Chiefs. Let me know a moment to play a fiao. So we have had two very important meetings so far, one in Ho and one in Sokakope, where we met the standing committee of the regional house. We're working very closely with the president of the house, Togbe Teprehoto IV, Togbe Patamia, and all the other standing committee members. And we discussed government policies. About the last meeting we had lasted for about 3 days. And the Minister for Finance was with us, National Security Minister, Local Government Minister, myself, Information Minister, the Railway Development Minister, former Minister for Chieftaincy and CEO of Bui Power, Honorable Kofi Jamesi, was with us. So we've had Mr. Lisbohini also with us at one time. So this is a regular forum that the President has directed that the government engages with the chiefs of the Volta region to address very pertinent issues, developmental issues concerning the people of the Volta region. And it's going on very well. And I'm sure the President briefed the House at your meeting last Friday. And so the LFVD engage a fiao because a jirudu pobe a fiao levivide ta wocho le mi agbola waga iriji mbubu so enye nane sike mi dobe ne mi wo edu prolai edo wanamai mi dak pebe. The leadership of the Volta Regional House of Chiefs, they are cooperating with us and they understand what we are doing and we are on the same page. And there's actually nothing that goes on in government that I don't share with the President of the House. Just to keep them along with us. So, thank you.
So, the point is very well noted. Advice is already being worked on, that engagement with traditional authority. I want to go to Minister for some of the other questions. A question by Patricia, that if after exporting gold and crude oil and everything else, all our problems are not solved, can there be a guarantee that when we pay some more, all our problems will get solved? Minister, I think that's a question, it's a policy question for you. Dr. Nyako's first question is operating on the assumption that we are net exporters of crude oil. I'll take your comment on that one. And he's also asking, is it only E-levy that there will be accountability for? Or the others that he has heard in the grapevine that government has received, some of which are indicated to him amounts to double counting. Will there be some accountability for that as well? Minister, I think those questions are directed to you. And then I'll come for the final batch of questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed for that. And Togwe, thank you for your wise words at the beginning of the session. And I think that's important because it brings some sobriety. It brings some sobriety to what we are talking about. And the old way of gathering so that we can hear all sides and then make a decided move forward. But I think essentially what Tobe was saying in my mind was that yes, we need to educate ourselves about policies before we speak, and that he's asking why things that may improve, the things that we have talked about, employment, etc., why any honorable MP would vote against that. And therefore, the issue of ring fencing the republic versus politics becomes very important for the sustainability of the state. Patricia talked about all that we export and then continuing unemployment and therefore what is new. Patricia, I think what we all should realize is that we have been running a budget deficit for a long time, which means that we are spending more than we are raising in revenue. And as I mentioned before, of all the public sector workers put together, that consumes close to 56% of the revenue we raise. So if you take that out, you are left to 44%. We need to pay for our interest, for the debt, and then when you also add infrastructure and co, you clearly are beyond what we do. But any nation, borrows to support its development, and we want to shift that burden more onto ourselves than to outsiders. And will that then lead to hopefully looking to cure the issue of unemployment, etc.? That really is the objective of what we are doing with each budget that we start with. I think you would realize yourself that since we came, we've gone through some bumps here and there, but clearly in terms of bringing nurses and teachers back on the payroll, we've been able to do that. In terms of increasing the number of our kids who are now in senior high school, we've been able to do that. I think the issue of accountability is what we all should be talking about, and how we make sure E-levy and beyond we account to the people. But really, the truth of the matter of whether we are feeling a lot more entitled than what it is we have, whether we are not recognizing enough what government is doing, what we want to do as a nation to keep our head up in terms of burden sharing, that we cannot continue with 2.4 million people, only being responsible for our taxes. And if we just even come to localize it in our region here, you see a population of 5.6% of the country, but contributing 0.11% of the taxes. So all of those need conversation, discussion, so that we can raise the resources that we need and continue to move forward. Are we overtaxing public sector workers? I believe by the time we finish with E-levy, everybody will be taxed, and everybody will then be contributing, and that will be a question of the past, and hope that with entrepreneurship
there will be other jobs in the public sector to do. I think the issue, Dr. Nyako, of I think that in the face of it, you see Ghana exporting maybe some 4 billion worth of petroleum products maybe last year, and importing about 2.7 billion of that, which seems to suggest that there's a net exporter for that. But we now need to take out the portion that Ghana really earns. You know, the tallows, etc., are part of the 3.9 billion, and we will not be in the statistical solution equivalent that you are talking about. COVID, I mean, the issue, I mean, you enumerated a number of things with regards to the $1 billion from the IMF, the SDR grant, the 10 billion that we got from Bank of Ghana, which is borrowed money we have to pay back for it, the 430 billion loan from the World Bank, etc. That was all put together, in which portions of that went to the business program by MBSSI, the water, the electricity during the lockdown, and the food. And given the depressing nature and quickness of the loss in revenue, how we needed that to move, to be able to sustain ourselves, that in all of Africa where there was a negative growth, Ghana was able to get 0.4% growth, and therefore climbing out of that recession a lot faster than other people on the continent. You know, but we are clearly not out of the woods. As the Minister of Information mentioned, now we have, you know, a cacophony of issues that are going to impact us going forward. Inflation is just shot up by 600 to 800 basis points for the West, and that therefore will mean that the Fed is going to increase rates, which will affect our interest rates. Global supply chains have changed, more expensive. Therefore, we are importing inflation, fuel prices will go up, and of course, we are quickly trying to calculate whether we'll be net gainers of that or not, depending on our portion of the oil that we support. Accountability, I think E-levy will be helpful in doing that, and it has to impact all of those things. And I did mention when the Irish economy also came to a standstill, and then they began national conversations of this nature for everybody to recognize the predicament that we are in and how to move forward. So from a 15-16% inflation, which was ravaging them, and a debt to GDP ratio of 115%, we are at about 78% or so. They were able to halt that through conversations with labor, faith-based organizations, and program a way in which wages are increased, productivity levels are done, everybody is taxed, and within short order, they were doing 9%, 10% in terms of growth, so that productivity and youth employment increase. And I think we've come to a point such as this, as Togbe was referencing, for us to be knowledgeable about where we are and to be clear on the vision of who a people we are, manifest destiny for greatness, and to be able to burden share so that we can move forward to create this nation that we want. But I think we also need to be really good about understanding, you know, what our politics is and what the republic is, and accountability by government, so that we can all contribute and move the nation forward. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're gradually coming to the end of our conversation. I'm going to come around for the last batch of questions. This time I'll expand the pool and take 6 as we wrap up. I just want to hit on 2 things that Minister mentioned. George, please hold on, just so that we don't get distracted. Dr. Nyapon, so Minister, you know he's a gentleman, so he quotes his words nicely, but I want to hit it directly. What Minister is saying is that when you see total volume or total proceeds from exports from Republic of Ghana, not all of it is for Ghana. Remember that when the oil was found, Ghana did not have money to do participating interest. And so the companies that are mining our oil, they are carrying us. It's carried interest, a small percentage. The companies that are drilling the actual oil. So we have a carried interest, which is very small, and then they pay some taxes. So actually, what comes to Ghana is our operating interest. We have it. That compared to all the finished products that we import does not make us a net exporter. That's what Minister is saying. The second question of accountability. If anybody tells you that government has not accounted for and must therefore come and account for some of these funds that you mentioned, it is not true. You see, sometimes because of our politics, people throw sensational things into the ecosystem. First of all, the budget is an accountability document. The first thing you see in the budget is accounting for everything that happened in the previous year. So every fund that was made available to government in the previous year is accounted for in the budget. Second, there's a level of accountability that the Auditor General brings to bear. The Auditor General will now come and look through and find out if these funds were used in accordance with the Public Financial Management Act and for the purposes for which they were voted. That's a second level of accountability. Unless something has, or something untoward has happened, you will find that the Auditor General will also further pass it. Then there's a third level, special reports. So, for example, petroleum revenue. The law requires you to go and make a special report. In addition to the budget reporting and Auditor General, the law requires you to make a report to Parliament, and PIAC will also make a report to Parliament. Also under special reports, sometimes depending on the nature of the fund, like a World Bank vote to support COVID, you have to prepare a special report on all that you used it for. It cannot be that government will take all of these monies and refuse to report on all of these matters. You will find that all of these reports are available. And that's why sometimes when somebody raises something, I say mention the thing, because it's an honest conversation. Read it, mention it, and let's go through it. So my brother, that again is not correct. We'll come back for the final batch of questions. I'll take 6 this time. Let's be very quick so that we can hear more people and wrap up.
Minister, let me,
Yes. Minister of Finance wants to make a quick comment, and then Madam, I'll come to you.
Right. A quick one. This is for Dr. Nyako. I did mention that if you look at the exports of 3.9 billion and then imports of 2.7 billion, that seems to suggest a net benefit to us. In actual fact, of the $3.9 billion of exports, Ghana's share is $519 million. $519 million. And we imported in 2021 $2.72 billion. So our share is 519, we imported 2, so you are, deficit in terms of what we do. But if you add all of the shareholders, as a minister mentioned, then it seems to suggest that. So we dig a little deeper into the statistics and you realize the situation that we are in. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we are importing about 4 times, about 2.1 as against 500 million, about 4 times what we are earning from our share of the export. So don't let anybody tell you that story that Ghana is a net importer. Yes, madam, let's start with you. Ghana is a net exporter.
Thank you.
Yes, madam.
I want to draw an analogy here. Let's take the country...
Madam, what's your name, please? Respectfully.
Benedicta.
Benedicta, let's go.
Yeah. the country and the government. A nuclear family, a father, mother, and children. Here is a father who takes decision, who carries out, and asks the family to just follow. Now, the family has been following. The father has come to a precipice, nowhere to go, and now turns to the family. What do we do? What will this family tell this father? Let me zero into the free senior high school. The free senior high school implementation is good, but there were a number of challenges, and a number of groups have called for review. No review has come. Now, the government now turns to the citizen that I need more money to carry on these free SHS. What will the citizens do? They will not take it lightly. And so acting for E-levy so that all other things can be done, I think it's a bit difficult. If the free SHS is reviewed, then much of the E-levy will be managed to take care of it. But without the review, I think the citizens will be hard hit. That is my view.
Thank you. Thank you, Benedicta. And Benedicta's point is that government should consider a review of some of its programs. So that is Benedicta's suggestion. Can we take a few more?
Yes. Thank you.
Please introduce yourself and let's be quick, sir.
Yes, my name is Vincent Godoli Kojo Togodo Makpa, aka Nyabia Banto in Honorable Peter Jean-Pierre Amau, Honorable Pius Ajida. About Oimiana, the Votarigina, Votarina Minister. Majima Biaba COVID Agalia. Nayaba COVID Litutua, Kalaka Taflache, Afio Promi Coteroa, Rokovajana Yabaka, Tina Paominian, Lafia, Napuma Bakatala, Madame Yagio, Tamia the Cuckoo, no Jibo or Ronny Toko, no Ronny To Nami, Majiba Mabiaba, Mafoncho, a Gado Donchi. Le gado doa odoga abat mi choko a forma ton o la ji mi gara daliam onani tu ote dofia on ayure gana gamana mi na nya katan nya tanse bomo apa wono ga yore dollar ma munana ma ara funa nya dadao ple nya maro le adukom ko ba covid va nya ba covid la nya karaji ba nya katan nya ita mieko mo vo ochore ankumado kakama globe aga gbogbo ka betato onami pre individual onami de agama de badashna fi amoti won konta na mi o honya ba E-levy ko excuse me onya ba E-levy ko yo ho afia tendre du corona mia Miamado, Aro Miama Marola, a Hoshima, Platomo, Odomaro, Miba, any year, Ogogloba, evil, Cogramola. She can never E-levy, my own Mulava, evil, a boy, Mogoma Samu. That made a Kukunova, no Jababa, no one, Tonamila to come. Not to come enough Famiano, Alaba, a Fifi, Vabora to come a Lababa, dog warmer, a ball. Yetting Mogoma Samu. Honorable Pius Ajida, Chakura Mianovio, Nikarajiba.
Chairman, can you wind down for me so that I move to 1 minute? Because I'm told it's been asked and answered already.
I beg you, 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Chakura Mianovio, Kaka, Miejaba, Nolaona, Yetingo Polo, Nyacha Baleka, Kunyacha, Amachichao, over Unfonamifiana, Yetingo Chena Mianonio, Aida of Watabe Mianovio. Oh, Chakura. Nkai wata wanami mete wona na fa ngodo motoreko kaka bi fila fiela
Grateful. Grateful to you. Grateful to you. Let's hear some of those who are behind you. So we'll take a note of that. Let's hear some of those who are there. We've got four more persons to take. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm
Yes, sir.
Joshua Ayayi.
What's your name, sir?
Joshua Ayayi.
Joshua, please make it snappy so that we can hear more people.
Okay, so when Honorable Minister of Finance was speaking, he just posted Momo and then e-commerce. But e-commerce, we know, is money going through buying and selling, right? And it's transacted electronically. Momo is transferring of funds electronically. So what are we taxing? Momo or e-commerce? The second thing I want to say is I am part of a youth network, Home Municipal Youth Network, and we are willing to engage with government at the local, the regional, and the national levels. We have a national youth network. We have youth networks formed across all the regions. And if you want to come back to Pale, really listen to the position of the youth on these matters, we are ready and willing to engage with you. If you think we do not have the requisite skills to engage with you on the level, teach us. We are willing to learn. We will learn and come back, engage on critical issues, analysis, and then bring back things. For example, looking at the UK digital tax, targeting companies that are giving revenue above a certain threshold and taxing them instead of placing a blanket tax on everybody, which makes it difficult for people to move from the underserved stage to the privileged stage.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Noah, please make a note and you respond to this e-commerce and Momo and UK digital tax matter for me. We're going to take three more. Please make it snappy for us. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Please, my name is Vitalis Geraldo. I wanted to ask, what is government doing to help our small-scale farmers and traders and entrepreneurs? We have a big man-made lake here in Ghana, the biggest in the world.
Small-scale farmers, entrepreneurs, and...
Yeah, and traders.
And traders.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we have the biggest man-made lake in the world. When I look on Google Maps, you only see some small, hatcheries on the lake. The rest of the lake is just empty. Egypt recently started digging, ponds to produce more fish. Now, back to the farmers. One farmer recently lamented to me that he had 30 acres of farm, and he couldn't finance the whole thing, and all his crops died. So I need to ask government if they can give special loans to farmers, so that in turn, those same crops can help feed.
So, Minister, I guess the question is, how do some of the things we are talking about funnel into the government intervention programs that help farmers, traders, entrepreneurs, etc., etc.? How do these programs funnel into it? NYA, etc., how do they funnel?
And finally, I want to suggest if we can use the whole airport as a cargo hub in order to export food to the outside countries so that we can make more money for our government.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's a suggestion. We'll take two more and wrap up. Two more. Are there any ladies? We are biased towards ladies. There's a lady here. So, George, wait. Take just one gentleman, and then we'll give the final word to the lady. Yes, sir. Let's be quick.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. My name is Aklama.
Aklama. Please go ahead.
So, my genuine worry about the E-levy is the fact that it taxes transfers. And we are worried about the rising inflation on both food and non-inflation, not food sides. Food and non-food inflation are both rising, and that's a concern for the economy. If we are taxing transfers, are we not further reducing people's purchasing power? Should purchasing power be going down? Are we not inadvertently telling industry to produce less because demand will definitely fall? Should demand be falling and supply is less, people are going to be laying off people. So would the transfer, the E-levy rather not be retrogressive rather than progressive? That's the first one.
Quickly.
The second question is, we've time and again heard the government refer to the fact that about 2.4 million Ghanaians are the only people paying taxes.
Who are paying direct taxes.
Okay. Most often than not, the direct is not added.
No, it's added. I have added it like twice today, and just when you said it, I added it again.
Well, I've heard the Honorable Finance Minister mention it without adding the direct.
Well, that's why I'm correcting, even when you mentioned
that's clarified.
It.
I'm grateful. Thank you.
Direct taxes. Thank you very much. So there's a question about the reduction of purchasing power. And in a time like this, what does taxation do to the reduction of purchasing power and all the analysis? Nowhere. So I'll come to you on that one, and then the question on Momo and e-commerce and the digital tax from the UK. Please note those ones for me. Minister will tell us about how all of these interventions funnel into government intervention programs like what the NYA is doing and other agencies are doing. Madam, we'll give you the final word. Please introduce yourself to us. Yes, madam.
My name is Jijo. Okay,
Jijo.
Yes, Jijo. Please, my question is, are we not overburdening the E-levy? Even though it is not yet approved and we are not yet taking it, under the E-levy, we are having unemployment situation being tackled. Under the E-levy, road contractors are going to be paid fully, and also construction of our roads. Under the E-levy, we're talking about free SHS.
So are we not putting too many expectations?
Yes, because with the road
construction,
with the road construction, we have road fund. Okay, we have Get Fund, we have ESLA.
No, Get Fund doesn't go into road.
Remind us to be able to become a boarder and attend secondary school. Your parents had to raise at the point of entry not less than 2,000 Ghana cedis, 20 million. To be a boarder, you had to raise not less than 10 million, 1,000 cedis. There were many young people brighter than I who went to school with me in Apipa in the Volta region, who today, when I go to the village, they come to me just because my parents had family property they could dispose of so that my sisters and I could go to school. So free SHS cannot be the option. We cannot, as a region, especially for us in the Volta region, who do not have gold, who do not have timber, who do not have all the other things that some other regions have. We in the Volta cannot say that let us sacrifice free SHS for E-levy. We cannot. And I want to plead that when we have this conversation, probably many of us here might have voted for the NDC. Of course, they won the popular votes in the Volta region. So when my brothers come and they say that, oh, tidal waves happened to our brothers in Keta, and and all of those, we want to press emotive buttons. We want to deviate from the cracks and gravamen of the discussion that we are having. And we want to now appeal to people's sentiments. And we want to incite the NDC part of us into the conversation. We will blur the conversation and we will misdirect where we should be going. And so please, let us be honest. I listened to a radio station before I came, and the question was asked to one of my good friends, an NDC member of parliament, that if this E-levy passes and you win, be it in 2004, 2024, I don't think so, but whatever time the NDC wins, will you scrap will you repeal the law? Will you cancel it? Will you scrap it off? He held on for a moment, hesitated for a moment, and Minister, his answer was that, well, we can't answer if questions. We will cross that bridge when we get there. If it was a principled position, I could only have imagined one and only one answer. Yes, we would. But that would have committed them. And that's what my brother Johnny spoke about. That the true motive of our brothers who are against the E-levy is not because they claim that it will impose some difficulties on us. That cannot be the true motive. The true motive is this. Because you see, I am a politician, or at least a student of politics. If I am in a political party and I want to win, and a move will impose hardships on people, many politicians will allow that to happen so that the people who are suffering the hardship will look at their condition, their circumstance, and vote against the hardship. But this one, they are saying that in fact, they are crying assuming somebody died, they are crying more than the bereaved. The answer is in what the minister said, that the true motive is this, that E-levy will come to resolve many of the challenges, particularly of the youth of this country. And when these challenges are resolved, they feel that then the youth will decide to maybe say that, well, we are comfortable where we are, and then maybe let this government continue. So it is the extreme politicization of our hunger for power for the sake of it. That is why I believe that we are where we are today. But I believe that the Volta region has a solution to the problem. We have a region where the NDC members of parliament are in the vast majority. From here, if we send a clear signal to them that what you are doing is maybe in your interest, but it is against our interest as citizens of Ghana and fellow Voltarians, and that if care is not taken, we will have nui kamia wana sohio na bodo na wawo miba yomo wogo nui kamia wo na wadomo miba yomo wogoa na do akoda ya enyadali mi abuta malemi anwa. I believe that there and then we'll get the solution to the problem. But if we also, just because historically, because Jerry Rawlings, who was even after ostracized from the NDC once upon a time, our brother was there, we supported him and he became president. And so, by default, we voted for the NDC, and we continue in that path, even at the peril of our own existence. Then, my brothers, I'm sorry, we may not be playing fair by even ourselves. Let us leave the politics aside. Me, I can talk politics, and I do talk politics. But let us wait for 2024, the elections year. Let us come and talk records. Let us come and talk about our various policy positions. Then let's vote along those lines. For now, Ajobreo, let's drop all the politics. MPP, let's think about Mother Ghana and the youth, the vast majority of the Ghanaian people who are the youth, who are screaming for jobs.
Honorable John Peter Mewu will give you the very final word quickly, and then we'll go for a vote of thanks.
Yo, Akpanami, Makarajibe, Mianovi Pio, Seglonia, Siana, Uta. And you recommend ma adakwana miape fiao fianyolu duma machichio de kapio plus de tubio miabe district chief executive o ple amakwekwe bubu okata be egbepe nyaya miakata miesela fia mia atwe ayide apeme e mia buta mechun mi de politics le miape ajoga nyaome elabe ngogbe akpon amesiamele. Look into the future for your own benefit. Take politics out of this discussion and see what will be a bigger interest for your home, your family, and then the country at large. On this note, I want to say a very big thanks to everybody.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ministers. May I invite Mr. Doji Numekevo, who is the head of Public Affairs and Information, Ghana High Commission, UK, to give us the vote of thanks.
Thank you very much. I think so far it's been a very dispassionate and intense conversation about our economy. At the beginning of the program, we called on the Almighty God to guide and protect us so that we can have a very successful program. And I think so far we've had. And so it is just appropriate that we give him his praise and his thanks for guiding us throughout the program. So we say thank you to the Almighty God. I should also like to say a very big thank you to our revered chiefs and queen mothers for their support, attendance, and their presence that help in making this program a success. Tokbuyo, Mamao, we say a very big thank you to all of you. To our visiting honorable members, chief executives, and regional minister, we say a very big thank you to you for taking time to explain the issues to us and for taking our suggestions, counsel, and advice. We say thank you to you for coming. Ultimately, This program couldn't have been successful without the presence, the recommendations, and the advice of your very good self. You helped in no way in making this a great success. And we say thank you.
Watch the CAF Interclub competition on GTV Sports Plus live and in HD. GTV Sports Plus. The legends live here.